It's called the Marazzo. The design is based on a shark, and this is their all-new 7 and 8-seater. Now Mahindra say it's a huge step forward. It's a new engine, a new chassis, a new design, an all-new interior. Is it that big a step forward? We are at their Chakan plant to get you a first look. Now, as I've said earlier, Mahindra say this design is inspired by a shark. Must admit, the Marazzo's cab-forward mono-volume silhouette does taper nicely towards the rear. The robust stance, the nicely bulging wheel arches, the beautifully sculpted sides, the floating roof and the flush-mounted windows make it look very sophisticated. The door-mounted wing mirrors are a modern touch, and what also gives the design a bit of agility is the rising beltline and the chrome highlight. There's also a narrow band of black cladding running around the bottom, which makes it look less bulky. The tail lights are nicely styled, if a bit oversized, and the chrome bar brightens up the rear. The tail lights, however, don't extend across the hatch like they do on the Innova, and this could have reduced the bulk of the rear. Up front, the high-mounted headlights are nicely proportioned, if a bit small, and the grille with its anodized elements looks nice, but the Marazzo doesn't have anywhere as strong a nose as the Innova Crysta. But there's more to it than just the design. The Marazzo has a lot of new tech under the skin. For one, there's an all-new front-wheel drive, transverse engine, body-on-frame architecture, which is unique. And 52% of the Marazzo's body in white is made out of high-strength steel, important for future crash test norms. So inside the Marazzo, and there's an interesting blend of new shapes and traditional proportions. Well, this lacquered bit here that runs right across really does stand out, as does this touchscreen, which is frameless. There's another color screen here which gives you a lot of information. You can scroll through it like that. Fantastic. And there's this aircraft throttle-like handbrake lever. It's a bit fiddly to use at times, but it is different and nicely executed. Now, the armrests here are practical, but there is a bit of an ergonomic issue. Your hand can get stuck. Still, there is nice stuff like this rubberized cup holder, probably the perfect place to keep your phone. Lots of USBs. Of course, carried over stuff is there, like this HVAC control, and some of these switches, they are from earlier Mahindras as well. The superbly finished front seats have good lateral support. They are big enough for large frames, and finding a good driving position is easy. And this version of the Marazzo has individual or captain seats. So in the second row of the Marazzo, and as you can see, even when the seat is pulled all the way forward, there's a decent amount of legroom here. What I can do is that, and then of course the space is just massive. There's good thigh support, it's a nice long seat. The shoulder support isn't brilliant, but what you do get are two very clever features. One, this sun blind is very effective in our weather, and you also get this big AC unit up here. You can use it in two different ways, direct and diffuse, so it's not blowing down on you hard, and that's smart. Now in the past, some of Mahindra's seat folding mechanisms haven't been the slickest, but watch this. Just one touch, two fingers, and that's it. Also, this car, this 7-seater, is a bit easier to get in. And once you're in the back, yes, you are seated a bit low, but comfort here isn't too bad. There's a good amount of headroom. You have your vent right here. There's a cup holder. It's pretty decent. The backrest, however, is a bit upright. The floor isn't flat in the back, and then there isn't too much luggage space, especially if you are 6 or 7 passengers. Under the bonnet, there's a new 120 horsepower 1.5 litre common rail diesel engine, which uses a variable geometry turbo. And it comes with a new 6-speed manual gearbox. Since we have the track to ourselves, let's check it out. So, first impressions of the Mahindra Marazzo. Question is, is it really a Mahindra? Well, it certainly doesn't feel like one. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel difficult to drive. It feels light, easy, effortless, nicely built on the inside. It truly is a big step forward. And as I drive it more and more, well, the impression keeps getting stronger. Take this engine for example. It's a little gem, this 1.5. Now I'm at around 12 or 1400 RPM. I'm in third and I put my foot down and it just goes. Well, that's the variable geometry turbo working for you, and the engine pulls strongly all the way till around 3600 RPM. And what's even nicer is that if you keep it in this band between 1500 and 3500 RPM, it's silent, it's smooth, and it just pulls beautifully. It isn't as impressive, however, when you try and extract maximum performance. Post 3500 RPM or 3600 RPM, power tapers off sharply, and it actually makes no sense pulling the engine all the way to the red line. So if you are in a hurry, there's no real sense of urgency here, and the Marazzo only appears to gather speed in a relaxed manner. So overtaking would need a bit of patience, and that's especially true if the Marazzo is loaded with 6 or 7 passengers. That said, however, the last 500 or 600 RPM does get a bit noisy. Mahindra have also done a super job at making this car light and effortless to drive. This is true of the clutch, which needs almost no effort. The gearbox is light, accurate, and very direct, and the steering too doesn't require much effort. Straight line stability is so good, it gives you tremendous confidence from behind the wheel. You can just carry on at a good speed and not have to pay attention all the time. The other good thing is that when you come up on a corner, you don't need to slow right down. You don't need to stand on the brakes. You can carry a bit of the speed in, you can turn it at a fair amount. And this means you can drive it more naturally and hold on to a bit of speed as you enter a corner. The presence of a heavy ladder frame, however, does affect low speed ride and cause some amount of movement and lumpiness. But as speeds build, it smoothens out and ride is pretty flat. But since Mahindra's track has very few bumps, the Marazzo didn't get a chance to display just how well its tall springs and aluminium suspension arms would have worked. There's little doubt the new Marazzo is an all-new level for Mahindra. Expected to be priced between 11 and 16 lakhs, it is sophisticated, refined, light and easy to drive, and even has a cabin that's a big step up on anything Mahindra has done till date. Yes, it needs a bit more power and performance, and there still are a few ergonomic issues in the cabin. But even as things stand, the Marazzo is Mahindra's best car yet. It is well engineered, feels right straight out of the box, and is so well rounded, it bodes well for Mahindra's future models. All in all, a big step forward.
Lake Tahoe in Reno is a place for the rich and famous to spend their vacations. It's also a place for kids' summer camp. But I'm in this fabulous location for quite a different reason. And like those summer camp kids on a field trip, I'm herded into a gleaming lineup of Jeep Wranglers, the 2018 version. It's a convoy and we're led down the highway towards what we're told is a surprise. I can't wait to see it. But this drive gives me time to get acquainted with the new 2-liter turbocharged engine that sits under the hood of the 4-door hardtop that I'm driving. My initial reaction is that this engine just doesn't feel like a 2-liter. It gets off the line smartly, it accelerates well, and cruising down the highway, within the speed limits of course, it feels effortless. Every time I have to negotiate an overtake maneuver to keep up with the convoy, it comes up with enough power easily, and the 8-speed auto works well in tandem. Notably, this Wrangler has shaved off about 90 kilos using aluminium and high-strength steel for more of its body parts. The 33-inch tires also make less noise than before, and the car feels more settled, planted, and much smoother over the bumps. Although the steering has improved from before, it still isn't bristling with feel, and it has some slack around center. Still, overall, the car feels far more sure-footed around corners with much less body roll. I was happily evaluating this car on a scenic drive around the lake. However, Jeep was more interested in impressing us in its own playground. And soon enough, we hit the dirt. Well, if you're an off-road enthusiast, then you're going to be extremely envious of what I'm about to do today. Well, this is the holy grail of off-roading, the Rubicon Trail. And of course, I have the 2018 version of the Jeep Wrangler, the one with the volume dials turned full up, the Rubicon. What else for this trail? Let's hit it. Now, if there was a worry that this 2-liter turbocharged engine won't really cope with off-roading well because there'll be turbo lag, I think those fears can be allayed completely. It crawls beautifully. I'm pretty much smashing everything out of the park here. And so far, haven't had a problem at all. The crawl ratio of the gearbox is much improved, and it's what makes the progress smoother than expected. And once I get a hang of the amount of throttle required to get this turbo engine spinning up and away, the progress becomes easier.
Awesome, doing great.
The trail begins with a bit of a dirt track. They're just small rocks strewn across and nothing too dramatic. I'm moving at quite a reasonable pace. On the rougher terrain, the improvement in the ride quality was even more apparent. Soon enough, we sight a bunch of Jeep Jamboree staffers, and I look ahead to see what could be a baby elephant sitting on the road. But it's not that, it's just a huge rock that we have to clamber over. Impossible, I'm thinking. Suddenly, all the numbers and figures thrown at us in the presentation the day before, like 27.8-degree breakover angle and 37-degree departure angle, a 44-degree approach angle, and a massive 277 millimeters of ground clearance, come into play. And thank God for that. We're told to disconnect the anti-roll bars by the flip of a switch on the dash. And thank God for that too, because I need the entire 200 millimeters of wheel travel to go over this massive rock. For its size, I'm really amazed by how deftly the Wrangler turns and can avoid all kinds of obstacles. You can really maneuver in and out of gaps so easily, and it literally turns on a coin. It's pretty amazing. The solid Dana axles have lockable diffs both front and rear, and they can be locked at the flip of another switch on the dash. But even in this crazy terrain, we only have to engage it once on the most slippery section of the drive. The Wrangler just seems to feel at home in this terrain. From the inside, I look out at the obstacles, and almost every time my reaction would, well, really have to be beeped out on TV. And whenever I feel it will not go through that space or over that boulder, the Wrangler just does it with such ease. When I jump out to take pictures and look at it from the outside, it reminds me of a giant tarantula flexing and extending its legs, or wheels in this case, to crawl over just about anything. Rock climbs, steep slopes, water wading, all of it is dispensed with ease. This car makes you feel pretty invincible. No matter what's ahead of you, you feel like, yep, I can do that, it can do it. The way the tires inch over the larger rocks, and even on the bigger drops, they gently and smoothly land, never slamming down. It is impressive. And so inside, you just don't feel the kind of terrain that's below your wheels.
Piece of cake.
Thank you. The Jamboree spotters are brilliant, navigating us inch by inch through some pretty crazy stuff. And despite the capabilities of the car, so severe is the terrain that every now and then it clangs down on one side, hitting a rock. The side steps or rock cars grate loudly, and on the inside it sounds like I've damaged something big. But the Wrangler is as tough as the trail, and we come out without any damage to the car. The 19 kilometers takes us the whole day crawling at literally walking speeds. But this arduous drive is completely worth it. And we finally reach campsite. It's a fabulous location that gives me a little more time to spend noticing the more superficial changes. The 2018 Wrangler carries on the heritage, but it has made tweaks to keep up with the times and regulations. The slotted grille that has its roots in the CJ now gets a bend halfway up, and the windscreen also gets a little bit more rake, all in the interest of improving aerodynamics, which results in better efficiency. The signature round headlamps as well as the tail lamps are now LED on the Rubicon version that we have, and the headlamps also get a DRL halo around the lights. The windshield gets a 4-bolt design to allow it to be folded down easier, and a new header bar remains in place when it's folded down, allowing the rear view to remain in place. Lighter panels and improved latches also allow for much easier removal of both hardtop and softtop. Now, all that off-roading capability means that this cabin is high off the ground, and you do have to haul yourself in. Well, it is the traditional Wrangler, and they don't want to move too much away from what it really authentically is. But this one is more modern, it's more updated. You get things like the touchscreen now, you get the USB-C ports. The glass areas are all a little bit bigger, and that's really great for off-roading. It's a smart two-tone dashboard. Ours is red and grey, with the important electronic tools for off-road sitting in a red-marked area on the central panel. While the parking camera is a handy tool, I would have liked a few more cameras around the car, especially the kind we've seen in other cars that let you know exactly where your tires are. Now, it's not only the glass area that's grown larger, it's the whole Wrangler that's grown. Now, in India, we will get the 4-door version of the Jeep Wrangler, and the good news is that space in the back has increased, and quite considerably if you look at the amount of space that I have up here. In fact, the wheelbase has grown about 2.4 inches, and then the length has grown about 3.8 inches overall. But that opens up a lot of room on the inside, though it may sound quite minuscule. Back seat is comfortable now, and of course you have nifty slots to keep your phone in. You have the USB ports, so pretty much everything that you need. I love the little Jeep icons all over the car, the gear knob, the rear mats, and the tire rims. They're just simple but nice touches. Overall, this car feels more up to date than before. For all its modernity, the Wrangler still retains its authenticity. It's all there in the genetics, every bit of it, only much improved. Absolutely amazing journey it has been on this Rubicon trail, and if you haven't done it, this is definitely a bucket list tick. There's absolutely no doubt about the Wrangler's off-roading capabilities, and if there was ever a sliver of a doubt, well, after seeing this, you'll know it pretty much smashes everything out of the box. But let's face it, most people in India will barely take a tread off tarmac with this, and definitely not in such extreme conditions. So the good news is that as much as the Wrangler has improved in its off-roading capabilities, it also has improved in its on-road manners and has become a far more livable everyday commute as well.
Now here we have a pair of proper hot hatchbacks with upwards of 190 horsepower. But there's a little bit of vendetta going on between these two. You see, the unassuming VW GTI took away the prize at our last comparison test, but the Mini, not to be outdone, is back with the JCW kit, and that's also packing a little bit more power. So, can it win it back in a drag race? Let's find out. In standard, guys, the Mini Cooper S was a close match for the VW GTI's 192 horsepower and 250 Nm. But this limited edition Mini JCW Pro version ups the ante. It now packs 210 horsepower and 300 Newton meters, and that nudges it comfortably ahead of the Volkswagen. All that remains to be seen is if it can use that advantage well on the quarter-mile drag strip. So there you have it, the more powerful Mini JCW Pro Edition did win the drag race, with its power and torque advantage amounting to about half a second at the end of the quarter mile.